Tonight, a special on the beat, civil rights in the Trump era. This week marks 50 years since the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. He was shot and killed on a hotel balcony in Memphis on April 4th, 1968. It was one day after a speech to striking sanitation workers in Memphis, where he advocated better working conditions. King also spoke about the obstacles ahead and the battles left to fight.
I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Now, 50 years later, we gathered 3 generations of civil rights leaders at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in Harlem to ask about that road to the promised land. Welcome. I'm here at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in Harlem, marking the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King. And tonight we're asking an important question. How are Black Americans advocating civil rights under a president who's defended white supremacy? I'm joined tonight by a very special panel, Dr. Melba Beals, who at the age of 15 stared down threats and hatred to help integrate Little Rock Central High School, my colleague, Reverend Al Sharpton, who headed up Dr. King's Operation Breadbasket right here in New York at the age of 13, Mark Morial, a longtime civil rights leader and former mayor of New Orleans. He now heads the National Urban League. Patrice Cullors, co-founder of Black Lives Matter, which she started in 2013 after the acquittal of George Zimmerman and the shooting death of Trayvon Martin. DeRay McKesson, an organizer who's led protests in Ferguson and Baltimore and ran for mayor there, and Beverly Bond of Black Girls Rock. Thank you to all of you. Rev Sharpton, I begin with that question. Advocating civil rights under Donald Trump.
You know, the irony to me is 50 years ago, I was 13 when Dr. King was killed, and everybody was fighting each other. You know, we were too mainstream, somebody was too revolutionary, and the result was the November Dr. King was killed, Richard Nixon was elected. The danger is that we can't let Trump play us off against each other.
You're nodding.
The lessons from that time, I think, are so pertinent to this moment right now. We are in a moment where there's Black Lives Matter, there's the Women's March, there's Me Too, there's Time's Up. There's all these movements in which we are trying to grapple with a president who's denounced so many of us. And I think now is the time where we actually have to join together. There's so much at stake. And so I think that's a profound lesson to learn from Dr. King.
The world we're fighting for is the same, but we often differ about how we can get there. And that we want to sit at the table and say, like, how do we get there? Like, what does that actually look like? And I'm hopeful about that.
We don't just have a president that supports these very racist ideas. He's unearthed something about our community, about our America, that we kind of let go. We've kind of acted as if it wasn't still here.
Do you think Donald Trump's election exposed a hate that people wanted to believe was not as prevalent as it is?
Absolutely. It absolutely exposed a hate.
Dr. Beals, what did you just say?
We let the dogs out. We did. Because I blame even those leaders and fighters who are my age for not realizing that although we got fairly comfortable with our Jimmy Choos, we did not understand that desegregation is not integration. I want you to see me as equal. And so if you don't get that going on, you have nothing.
Did you say Jimmy Choos?
I did. I said we got comfy, wumpy, woo.
So when you talk about comfort, are you directing that at both white and Black Americans?
I'm directing it at everybody, because we're not really talking about civil rights anymore. We're talking about human rights. Trump is a great gift to us all, because he woke us up.
You use the word gift.
Gift.
I want to go around and take one word for what Trump has done to the civil rights movement.
He's been an ignition.
Ignition, Reverend?
Backlash.
Decimation.
Nightmare.
Beverly, Donald Trump in a word.
Agitator.
I want to play Donald Trump's approach to racial strife, which we have had since the founding of this nation, but this was his approach in his first year.
I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either.
That was a response to white supremacist violence. Now I want to play another president who also had a questionable racial record, but how he responded in a moment of a national test after violence in Selma.
There is no Negro problem. There is only an American problem. It's all of us who must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice. And we shall overcome.
Johnson, King, Whitney Young, the 1960s bore a great movement and great progress. Then there was Nixon and Wallace. Don't forget, 1968 was Nixon and Wallace. Between them, they got 55% of the vote. And they engineered a backlash to the movement. We have to learn that progress will beget a backlash.
We saw that white evangelicals actually support him in historically high numbers, almost 80%, which is sort of wild. And I worry about the way that he is sort of offering language that suggests that these are equally legitimate, right? That the belief in justice and freedom is the same, has the same legitimacy as the belief that, like, a set of people shouldn't even exist.
Did we think we were going to have 8 years of black president? There wasn't going to be a backlash. They're trying to pick off and do what Nixon and them did. They will call her a terrorist. They will call him a radical and sue him. And we don't say anything. When Muhammad Ali stood up and said, I'm a Muslim, I don't believe in Christianity, but I'm not going to fight the war, Dr. King went and stood with Ali. And we must have the moral courage to say, we may have different tactics, we may have different ways. She may call me OG, I'm always saying that, but she's not a terrorist. So and he's not an extremist. That's where we got to go, because he wants to pick us all off.
Right. So the Rev's talking about your work.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter came partly out of other things not working enough. Eric Holder has spoken about it, as you know. Here was he in 2009, but I wonder if it looks more prescient today.
Though this nation has proudly thought of itself as a ethnic melting pot, in things racial, we have always been, and we, I believe, continue to be, in too many ways, essentially a nation of cowards. Average Americans simply do not talk enough with each other about things racial.
I'm just having a moment, because I'm like, this was our country at one point.
That was the Attorney
General. Many of us weren't asleep. We spent the last 5 years under a Barack Obama presidency, under Eric Holder as the Attorney General, fighting in the streets, protesting, trying to stop the state-sanctioned murders of black people. And now we can't even get that on mainstream media.
It was, of course, a famous civil rights song about the revolution not being televised was a critique.
You know that song.
I know a few songs, but the Gil Scott-Heron critique was of a corporate media that would never show black activism, no matter how large the march was.
Or show it only in a negative light.
Or show it very negatively as violence, not as protest.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.